Welcome back to the Bears Baseball Network, and we've got an exciting show today because if you checked out Rob's email this week, he introduced the Bears Winter League, and KJ, you've been around a long time. Bernie, you've been around a little bit less of a long time, but still a long time. You remember MLB. Back in the day, it used to be our Winter League. And then it was SFL. And then there was the Winter League last year for the high school guys. But this is going to be something way more competitive and way more fun. The Bears Winter League. It is a draft league, and it's going to be for the best players in the Bears. 26 players for each league. There's a 12-13U league, 14-15U league, and 16-18U league. 26 players get drafted. That's a lot of players not getting drafted, so it's going to be super, super competitive for the best of the best. All the undrafted players will be free agents, and they will be able to be picked up. And I'll tell you what, there's several reasons a guy could get picked up in free agents. Lack of performance. Guy's not playing well, release him. Pick up a free agent, high upside guy. Lack of attendance. Any guy that misses a practice or savage strength is ineligible to play that week. And I know what I'm going to do, KJ, is if a guy doesn't show up to workout, I'm probably just going to release him and pick another guy up to keep my roster nice and full. There's also going to be trades. You can trade inner age. You can trade your 18U player for a 13U player, and it's going to be a bat 7-man lineup. I'm going to be the coach of the Throwbacks team. Me and Reese Kryler are the coaches there. KJ and Bernie are the captain of the Pinstripes team. As you see, KJ, man on the jersey, on the show here today. We've got a lot to talk about. It's a very interesting draft. We've been going through the last couple weeks and scouting players, doing some interviews to see, what guys are going to be showing up here in this Winter League, and they're going to be really impressive players. But first, there is rules with pitching. There's a 10-inning timetable. Each guy can only throw a maximum of 3 innings out of 10. So you're going to need at least 4 pitchers per team, probably a couple more. And how's that going to affect drafts? Bernie, I'll start with you here. How important is pitching going to be with the league rules? You're going to have to use at least 4 pitchers. Does having to use that many pitchers make you more likely or less likely to draft pitching in this kind of draft?
Well, of course, if you had to use more arms, you have to draft more pitchers. But I think guys like Teagan, guys like Elijah Underwood, those top-level arms, right? I think each team needs at least those 2 or 3 big arms, right, to carry them through. Because, I think it's 3 innings per 12, right, something like that?
For 10, yeah.
Yeah, and so you need those guys to get through the full 3 innings and not have to go deeper into the bullpen.
Yeah, and also the playoff game, obviously. It's a 1-game championship, that 8-inning game. Obviously, you're only going to be able to use 3. You're going to use 3 pitchers in that game. So maybe taking that big ace early may not be the best strategy, or maybe it is to have that shutdown for 3 innings. This next thing, obviously the big rule in this Winter League is that if you miss a workout or practice, you're ineligible to play. And I'll tell you what, when I've been preparing my draft board, and I think I can say the same for KJ, attendance concerns for a couple guys, that has affected how I've ranked them. Are they going to show up to every single workout and every single practice? So KJ, how's attendance playing into how you're ranking these players? Because obviously guys who are going to be there every week are a little bit more valuable.
Yeah, I think, there's some top Bears players that also play other sports, and you got to take that into account. And I think, come Monday on draft night, it's gonna be something that's going to affect their value. The best ability is availability. So, I know I've been talking to some of the players, seeing, what weekends they're going to be there and what weekends they're not, and it's definitely going to affect the draft.
Yeah, and other thing is injuries, obviously. A big name, Jack Dalton, is going to miss at least the first week with his hand injury. And I'll tell you what, I was talking to Jack the other night, and is 90% of Jack Dalton, if he's going to be at the other 9 games, is that better than 100% of some of these other guys? And how is that going to affect his draft stock? It's going to be very, very interesting. The other interesting thing is, obviously, Winter League, we're playing on an indoor field, so there aren't going to be any outfielders. How does that affect their draft stock? These guys who are big hitting outfielders who defensively are going to be either a 0 because they're not going to play the field, or they're going to have to play out of position in the infield. KJ, what do you think for these big hitting outfielders? How has that affected their draft stock that they're not going to be big assets on defense?
Well, I think with how the rules are going, you can play a guy on defense who's not in the lineup. So I think, maybe if you draft heavy on outfielders that can hit, your later rounds you draft on more defensive specialist guys. So I think the biggest thing for at least my draft board is going to be I want big bats. So I'll take a little hit on defense to give me a big bat in order.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of guys, again, it is free defensive substitution, so you can have a guy play shortstop and not necessarily bat in the order, and that's going to be a big, big impact for these outfield big hitters. So the interesting thing, obviously, our 12-13U draft, 14-15U draft, and then a 16-18U draft. But guys can be drafted at multiple ages. You can play, obviously you have to play older, you can't play down. But with fewer players in total at 16-18U, that's going to make it really interesting to see how these 15U guys, and maybe even a couple 14U guys, are evaluated at that age. Bernie, I know you've looked at this, especially at 16-18U. You're a big expert at 16U as well. How are you seeing these 15U players fitting into that 16-18U league?
Well, first, I mean, they're going to be valuable. They're going to be valuable, but you got to evaluate some of these guys without their two-way aspect because they cannot pitch in the 16-18 league. Someone like Teagan is only able to hit. But I mean, they're definitely going to be valuable. They're definitely going to draft a lot of, especially the top guys. Your Vince, Dalton, I'm sure Jack Roberts, Teagan. Those guys will all get drafted, and I think they'll definitely be valuable because, like you said, there's some top guys at 16-18U, but the depth is a little lacking comparative to the other two drafts.
Yeah, just because there's fewer players, Our 12-13U draft is, again, 26 players, and we have over 60 at the age, at those two ages in the Bears. So a lot of good players not getting drafted. 14-15U, I think, is even deeper. I'll tell you what, Bernie, I did a mock draft on my own of 14-15U, and I went 17 rounds, and I still felt like there was more talent, and we're only drafting 13 rounds. So I think there's a lot of good players who are going to be available in free agency. So let's talk about some of those guys who could be late round impact, could be free agent pickups. And I'll tell you what, KJ, I don't know about you. I'm going to be aggressive with releasing and picking up guys. I plan on at least 17, 18 guys taking at bats for my teams because I'm going to be aggressive with picking up guys because there's a lot of talent and I want to see who's going to step up with that roster impact. But let's start 12-13U with some late round maybe a late round pick, maybe a free agent pickup. But some guys are going to make an impact. KJ, I'll let you go first. Give me a late round pick or a sleeper pick who could be a free agent as well at the 12-13U draft.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the guy who played on my team this year, Austin Arnaiz. And, this guy, he's in every program. I see him all the time. He's in catching, fast infield. He had back in free swinging the last couple months. So he's a very hard worker, and he's another guy who's an outfielder. And he doesn't pitch, so it could affect his draft stock a little bit in that way. But a catcher, a hard worker. I don't think he's gonna miss things. So that's where he'll find his value.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you what, nothing with him. Obviously, if he is on the bench, he could be a big courtesy runner because he's very, very fast. So another thing that could add to his draft stock. Bernie, 12-13, you give me a late round pick or maybe a guy who's going to be undrafted who could make an impact later down the road.
I'm going to stick with the 12U things. I just think the 12U guys are going to slide a little farther because they're playing with 13-year-olds. It's going to be Caden Inman. If you look at just Caden Inman's stats from the Game Changer, he had one of the lowest ERAs, if not the lowest ERA, on the 12U Floyd team. And I know he's a good defender in a couple different positions on the infield. I don't think that him missing will be an issue. So, I mean, as far as pitching, as far as defense, he has a lot of versatility that he could be used for.
Yeah, I think he could be a big impact player, especially if you get him in the late rounds. If you make it through the early rounds without a third baseman, that could be where you go. If you make it and you're a little bit lack on pitching, that could be where you go. I think he could be a very interesting player toward the end of the draft or even as a free agent pickup. I'm going to go a little bit differently because, again, you can get drafted above your age, and I'm going to go with a guy, and Harrison Blabaum, who's an 11U player, who I think will get drafted in his 12-13U league, but he's, I think, the biggest question mark in where he's going to get drafted because, obviously, he's playing up big. He's an 11-year-old. He's going to have to play against 13-year-olds at a 54-foot mound and 90-foot bases. You wonder if he'll be that same type of hitter, but I think you'd be silly not to at least entertain the idea of getting this guy on your roster because he could be a big, big bat, even playing 2 years up. So I think Harrison Blabaum could be a big player, and I think he will get drafted toward the end of the draft. Some other guys that we're not going to go too in-depth about, but some names that I think will be late-round picks or free agent pickups. Luke Driscoll, I like his upside bat. Phil Lobeck, obviously we love him on the show. Josiah Leaker, he's a catcher, which obviously is very valuable, and I think his bat could play. And Don Palucci is a big bat who I think could play late in the draft as well. Let's move on to 14-15. I think this is a very deep age. A lot of good players are going to go undrafted. And that makes me want to be even more aggressive with releasing guys and picking up free agents because there's so much talent not getting drafted. But Bernie, I'll let you start this time. 14-15, give me a late round sleeper or a undrafted player.
This guy's actually one of my favorite players from this age group. Weston Brody, another kid that's 14U playing the 14-15U league, so I think he'll slide a little bit to where he should be. But he's got a decent bat, and I think he's one of those kids that you could put a late round draft pick. They put all over the infield. I think he's an above-average defender at every single position in the infield, or close to it. And, I think he's another kid that's very versatile.
Yeah, very interesting pick indeed. KJ, give me a late-round sleeper or undrafted sleeper from 14-15U.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Kobe Kennedy. I think if, the BWL was introduced last year, we wouldn't even be talking about Kobe getting drafted in this thing. But, I think his bat has taken a huge step, and he's worked hard. He's done a lot of programs. I know he's in catching. He's in free swing. So this is a guy who's a very consistent bat at that age. And, I think someone's going to be very lucky to have him late.
Yeah, certainly a late-round sleeper with the bat could be a big impact player. I'm going to go with a guy who I like a lot. I've talked about on the show before, in Dane Pastrana. I think this guy could be a big bat to get late rounds, especially at the 14-15U where there are a lot of big arms and you may prioritize pitching early in the draft. If you want to catch up on hitting late, Dane Pastrana may be a sneaky way to go. He's going to be a big bat, I think, and I think he will be very valuable for whatever team he ends up on. Some other guys who could be valuable late in drafts, Adam Shockley, a guy I really like a lot. Braden King, very new to the Bears, kind of an unknown, but I think his arm could play at this level. Jaden Coleman, we love, certainly another one of those guys who could be a defensive specialist. And Shane Brinkman, who I think will get drafted in the late rounds. I think he's going to be a very nice pickup for whoever gets him. Let's move on to 16-18U. Again, fewer players in total, so obviously there's going to be some 15U guys getting drafted in this one as well, but a very interesting draft because, again, once you get to this age, there's not a lot of guys who can do both, pitch well and hit. So you're going to have to make some decisions early in your draft. And I'll go first here. A guy that I like as a late-round sleeper is going to be Rocky Tucker. His arm has taken a huge step in the fall, and I think he's going to be valuable when pitching runs out pretty quickly in the 16-18U draft. Just because you don't need that many pitchers at 18U. So a lot of guys stop pitching. I think Rocky Tucker could be a big arm to get later in the draft. And I think he's a sneakily upside bat as well. I like Rocky Tucker late in this draft as well. KJ, give me a sleeper at 16-18U.
I'm going to go with a guy I actually had last year in the league, AJ Siliberto. And the thing about AJ, man, it's going to make him valuable. The pitching is pretty thin at that age, 16-18U. And AJ's a guy who has shut it down for his team this fall. So, I think someone's going to be lucky to have AJ. And his bat also has some upside to it. And, I can tell from playing with him last year in the league, he's a good guy for the culture.
Yeah, I 100% agree with all that. Bernie, give me a sleeper at 16-18U.
I'll stick with 16U. It's going to be Oliver Saxon. So for Oliver Saxon, man, Oliver Saxon's the hitter. I think he has one of the higher floors, especially of the 16U kids. He's going to put the ball in play. He hits line drives. I think his bat plays in an indoor league. And look at this, Oliver Saxon pitching. I talk about a draft that's shorter on the arms. Oliver Saxon's upside might be the best pitcher at 16U when he's on. Like when Oliver Saxon's pounding the zone, his curveball's there, he might have the best stuff at the age. But there are times where Oliver Saxon just kind of slips and can't find the strike zone. So again, one of those guys that late rounds, he's going to give you a high floor bat. He can be a courtesy runner if you need him to. He can play the infield, and the draft of short of arms that he could be a big arm late.
Yeah, very interesting pick in Oliver Saxon. I definitely have been looking into him as a late round pick for my draft as well. I think it's a great pick. Some other guys worth mentioning, Thomas Langeke, big bat, could be a late round pick or undrafted pickup. Vince DiPiazza, again, 6U guy. Aiden Wardell, another 6U guy, I think could be a high floor player. And Andrew Willeret. Obviously, we talked about the 15U guys getting drafted at 18U. Could a 14U guy like Willeret make an impact at 18U? I think it's definitely possible because his bat is very, very good. It's going to be a very fun Bears Winter League. A lot of action. Again, this is going to be the best players in the Bears going head-to-head, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Ultra, ultra competitive. The draft will be on the Bears Baseball Network YouTube page, premiering on Monday night. This upcoming Monday, the 31st, it will premiere on the Bears Baseball Network YouTube, so be sure to check it out because it's going to be very, very fun. Bernie's going to be hosting the draft wall. KJ and I are in the war room, drafting, making the best teams we can. It's going to be a lot of fun. I will say real quick, the first overall pick in the 16-18 draft will be the Pinstripes, and the first pick in the 12-13 and 14-15 is going to be the Throwbacks. It is a snake draft, so 13 rounds. It's going to be very, very interesting. That's going to do it for the Bears Baseball Network, and we'll talk to y'all on Monday for the draft.